What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for AnimeUproar, and we finally have answers about the contents of that mysterious top secret information that Stain gave All Might. Plus, the final battle against Perfect Shigaraki might be only 3 days away. And on top of that, the ultimate Chadlass buff waifu queen was just introduced. I am of course talking about the strongest American hero, Stars and Stripes. What an absolutely epic chapter, so let's get into it. If you enjoyed the Boku no Hero content on this channel and you want to see more, you know what to do. Just leave a quick like and comment. It only takes a second, but it helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new to the channel, or maybe you watch the channel but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a quick favor and make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar. Finally, this video will of course contain Boku no Hero manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. The chapter starts off with a flashback to the fall of Tartarus, which took place about a month earlier. This was when All For One orchestrated the dramatic prison break that set the stage for the current phase of the story. As the giant prison burns, the villains on the inside are ecstatic at the prospect of getting out and causing chaos in the outside world once again. Some random insane looking prisoner is screaming about how he's about to go chase women in the outside world, and when this guy says chase, I don't think he means that metaphorically. However, before this guy can indulge his sick fantasies, Stain comes up to him and straight up ends him with a single stroke. And the fact that he just ended a guy doesn't even faze Stain. He just continues on his mission to find out what in the world is happening with the prison. Man, for all the terrible things he has done, you really can't hate Stain. He may be known as the hero killer, but he clearly has no qualms about taking out villains either. Anyone who doesn't fit his definition of a just person is fair game, whether they are heroes or villains. And while Stain is certainly not a heroic character, he is definitely consistent when it comes to his moral code. By the way, how dark has MHA become? We just saw a guy kill another guy and the story just moves on like it's nothing. Anyway, because Tartarus is a top secret anti-quirk facility, no information is allowed in or out of the prison. I assume this is referring to the technology inside the prison. It is completely insulated from the outside world to prevent potential infiltration. In principle, this makes sense. You don't want someone from the outside breaking into the Tartarus system using a quirk or maybe some sort of high-end technology, so shutting the entire facility off from the outside world seems like a no-brainer. At the same time though, this means that the heroes and police cannot coordinate their efforts on the outside and inside of Tartarus as effectively as they could have otherwise. And this is a weakness that All For One seems to have exploited. In the chaos that followed the prison break, Stain managed to sneak into one of the control rooms in order to try to find out what happened. How in the world did this super maximum security facility fall to the villains? Most of the prison guards inside the control room are already dead at this point, but Stain does find one guard who is badly injured but still alive and conscious. This man is likely the father of Shiketsu High student Seiji Shishikura, who, as you will recall, mentioned in the past that his father works as a guard in Tartarus. I am assuming that this is Seiji's father because he is literally the only guard who has been mentioned in the story up to this point, so having him actually become relevant to the plot makes sense. Stain notices that this injured man is clutching onto something, and this something seems to be extremely important to him because he has gone out of his way to shield it. The guard is clearly on the brink of death, but in his final moments he begs Stain not to give what he was holding to any of Shigaraki's followers. He explains that what he is holding is a recording device, and he decides to entrust its contents to Stain while imploring him to give it over to someone who is just and not to hand it over to the villains. This is a pretty heartbreaking scene when you think about it. A Tartarus prison guard who dedicated his life to fighting villains is now forced to beg a hero-killing villain to do the right thing by helping out the heroes instead of the villains. This guard has no idea what Stain will ultimately do. He doesn't know whether deep inside Stain does have some sort of moral compass or whether he's completely evil. But the guard has no other choice. He has to put all of his faith in Stain because Stain is literally his only chance of getting this important intel to the heroes. This guard is not going to make it, The other guards are gone, and his only hope is a hero killer. This is both tragic and poetic at the same time, and I really appreciated this scene. This is the kind of darkness and tragedy that you definitely wouldn't have seen in the early arcs of the story, and it really demonstrates the evolution of the MHA manga. Stain praises the guard's determination in protecting the recording device at the cost of his own life, and he assures him that the device will make it into the hands of someone just. As Stain leaves the control room, the guard asks him whether he is a man or a monster. Stain replies by saying that only those who strive for a completely just world are monsters, and man, this line is actually really deep. In the history of humanity, so many people have justified doing terrible things in the name of some greater good. But normally these people would always make themselves out to be the heroes, and they would make their victims out to be villains and monsters who only got what's coming to them. But Stain seems to be different. He does terrible things for what he believes is justice, but he has no illusions about his own role in the story. Stain doesn't see himself as a hero fighting for the greater good. He knows that he has become a monster, and he admits it openly. And yet, at the same time, Stain seems to believe that monsters like him are necessary in order to one day create a just society. Even if that society is one day established, Stain doesn't expect to be praised for his accomplishments. He expects to be treated like the monster that he is, but he is willing to sacrifice his own soul for the sake of his vision of justice. As Stain escapes the brutal aftermath of the villain prison break by throwing himself into water and then literally swimming to shore like an absolute mad lad, he vows to give the recorder to the one human he knows that he can trust. The only man worthy of this information is the man who started it all Might. And this proves beyond any doubt what I was saying in my previous MHA video. Stain pretended not to know that Toshinori Yagi in his Small Might form was really All Might, but he clearly knew all along. Stain would never have entrusted Toshinori with this information that the guard had sacrificed his life to protect if he wasn't 100% sure that the man he was giving it to was All Might himself. After All Might received the device from Stain, he handed it over to Tsukauchi, and damn, Tsukauchi looks like he's been through some stuff. Like, I know everyone's been through a lot at this point in the story, but Tsukauchi really looks like he's seen some things, man. On the bright side though, he looks a lot more badass than he used to. Now, the reason why the Tartarus prison break was so successful, and the reason why such a maximum security fortress fell to the villains, is because All For One was using the special properties of his quirk to communicate telepathically with himself. Essentially, the All For One inside the prison was able to communicate with the All For One inside Shigaraki in order to perfectly coordinate the prison break from both the inside and the outside. All Might says that One For All also has similar properties to this particular aspect of All For One. However, normally All Might could only communicate with the fragment of his consciousness inside One For All on a one-way basis. The vestige of All Might inside One For All seems to be able to get information from the original All Might, but the original All Might had never been able to get any information back from his vestige. That all changed when All Might made contact with an injured Deku back at the hospital. When he touched Deku directly, All Might suddenly felt the memories of his vestige flowing into him, and All Might knows that if All For One has a similar ability, or perhaps an even more advanced version of this ability, then All For One would have no problem communicating with his vestige even as he was stuck deep within Tartarus while his vestige was controlling Shigaraki on the outside. But it seems that this is not the whole story. Because Shigaraki now possesses the quirk Radio Waves, this quirk itself was apparently used to make this sort of telepathic communication between the original All For One and his vestige more effective. Because the connection occurred through radio waves, parts of the conversation between the original All For One and his vestige were captured by the Tartarus recording devices. And that is the information that the guard was protecting with his life. After analyzing the recordings, the heroes were able to determine that the conversation between the original All For One and his vestige contained the following words: "He will be completed in 38 days. He, in this case, is of course Shigaraki, whose insane awakening procedure was cut short back in Jakku. All for One's primary goal at this point in the story is completing this procedure as soon as possible, because once the procedure is completed, the new Shigaraki will be virtually unstoppable. And since this conversation was recorded over a month ago, it means that the intel that the heroes got earlier, intel which suggested that Shigaraki's procedure won't be completed for at least another 2 months, was actually false. If this Tartarus recording can be trusted, then Shigaraki's game-changing procedure will be completed in only 3 days. Whoa, that is insane. We all knew that the final showdown between Perfect Shigaraki and the heroes would be happening sometime in the near future, and my own guess is that the final showdown will take place at the UA. But just like the heroes, I also thought that we would have at least a few more months before that happens. The fact that Shigaraki is supposed to be complete in only 3 days' time is absolutely unreal, and it means that the final arc of the entire story could be just a few chapters away. Is this already the beginning of the final showdown? Will the heroes succeed in finding Shigaraki within the next 3 days, or is the completion of his procedure inevitable? From a narrative perspective, it makes sense for Shigaraki to reach his full potential before the final battle begins, because let's face it, that will make the final battle even more epic. But at the same time, if Shigaraki does reach that overpowered state, then we have to brace ourselves for absolute chaos and some serious casualties among the heroes. Many will die, including potentially extremely important characters like All Might, Aizawa, and others. Those minor deaths that we saw in this chapter could be foreshadowing other major deaths in the near future. And if all of this wasn't exciting enough, the chapter ends off with a meeting inside what appears to be the MHA version of the United Nations. Representatives of various other nations are apprehensive about sending too many of their own heroes to fight the villains in Japan, because it turns out that the situation within their own countries is not that stable either. Apparently, All for One's tentacles stretch to many countries, not just Japan. And if a large number of heroes from another country end up coming to Japan, then the criminals within that country will likely be emboldened to act. The bottom line is that every country is primarily concerned with the situation within their own borders, and they don't want to disturb the equilibrium at home in the name of helping a foreign nation like Japan. Basically, this UN has just as many issues and divisions as the UN in our own world, and in the end it seems that very little ever gets done through these official channels. That said, many of the top international pro heroes see All Might as a friend and mentor, and they are anxious to go and help him even as their own countries try to keep them at home. We get a sneak preview of 2 of those heroes, including an ancient Egypt themed hero known as Salam, which is the Arabic word for peace, and there is another hero named Big Red Dot who looks like a lion man. Both of these guys are running out of patience with their own governments because they want to go and help All Might now. Finally, we then meet the strongest hero from the United States. A hero who, in the freedom-loving style of the good old USA, has already left for Japan without waiting for the government's permission. Her name is Stars and Stripes. She is traveling to Japan by standing on top of a freaking stealth bomber. She is clearly an absolute mad lass with big, juicy biceps, biceps, and she is extremely determined to help All Might, whom she calls her master. Bro, what an absolute queen this woman is. We've only just met her, and it's already clear that she is an absolute badass. She looks like the lost love child of Wonder Woman and Chuck Norris, and she also looks like the female Homelander, but you know, let's hope she doesn't share Homelander's character traits. Either way, the simping has already begun online, and I'm neither surprised nor disappointed. This woman is about to absolutely break the internet and attract an army of tier 3 subs. With Miruko, Lady Nagant, and now Stars and Stripes, MHA has really spoiled us when it comes to tough, badass waifus, and I am not complaining. Let me know what you guys thought of this crazy chapter. Is Shigaraki's return really only 3 days away? And how awesome is Stars and Stripes? What do you think her quirk is? And how do you think she became so close to All Might? Finally, Deku's dad theory time. What if Deku's dad works at the MHA version of the UN? For some reason, the faces of all of those UN guys were noticeably obscured. And this made me wonder, why are they hiding their faces? Could this be setting up Deku's dad reveal? Since the story is truly nearing its final stage, it would make sense for Deku's dad to finally appear. And if he really was working for an international institution like the UN, it would explain why he has been away for so long. Anyway, don't forget to leave your feedback down in the comments below. I always love hearing from you. If you enjoyed this Boku no Hero video and you want to see more in the future, do me a quick favor and leave a like. It only takes a second, but it helps a lot. And if you're new to AnimeUproar, or maybe you watch our videos but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. You really have to go through the trouble of subscribing, clicking the bell, and then selecting that option that says all. If you don't do that, you're still gonna miss a ton of our videos, even if you are subscribed. It's just how YouTube works. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar. I want to give a quick thank you to all of our AnimeUproar patrons who make videos like this one possible. Special thank you to Alpha Sigma. This man is an absolute mad lad and a disciple of Lord Twigo himself. And I can't forget all of our The One tier patrons, the ones who stand above all other clans, including Ingrata, Pate Hefa, Aljatal, Hinokami and Water, The Toasted Chi, The Spike, Corey McGowan, Kaido Might Be a Gyarados, Dylan Isidore, Spidey Life Tanel, Tungsten Tarkus, Baked Buddhist, Cody Hebert, Monkey D. Quilly, and Jeremy Cummings. Finally, thank you also to our Pro Hero tier patrons, including the one and only Gilgamesh, the Red-Haired Raven, Angel Cruz, Rathu Indeora, Very Gucci, Alicia Octor, Bonnie Parks, Joanne Garcia, Ted No Ted, and Fatboy Games. If you enjoy our videos and you feel that they provide value to you, consider supporting us on Patreon. Even a single dollar will give you access to our Patreon exclusive Discord, and your name will appear in our videos along with these amazing people. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.